when I was reborn, the exact moment Ryan Carter asked for a divorce for the second time, I didn't hesitate. Not in the slightest. I just picked up the pen and signed my name on that divorce agreement without a second thought. Ryan Carter, though, he had no idea that a year later, Carter Enterprises would suffer massive financial losses. It would be because of betrayal from the top executives at the headquarters. The corporation would fall into a crisis, and under the combined attacks from its business rivals, his mental state would worsen. In the end, it all culminated in bankruptcy. The once glorious Carter Enterprises collapsed overnight, and Ryan Carter, the heir to the corporation, became a penniless man. He was so broke that he had to live in a basement, surviving on instant noodles. Back then, I truly loved him. I was willing to endure hardship by his side, even if he had nothing left. As long as I could stay with him, I was happy, but what I never expected was that even after he lost everything, the only person in his heart was still his first love. Even when I was pregnant and about to give birth, he abandoned me. The doctors classified me as a high-risk patient, but he left just so he could take care of her child. In the end, because I waited too long for his signature, both my child and I died on the operating table. And that child of his beloved first love? He only had a mild cold. Sophia, stop making a fuss. Just sign it already. What's the point of dragging on a marriage without love? Ryan's voice was calm, almost indifferent. I know you've wasted your youth on me all these years, so I won't treat you unfairly. I'll make sure you're financially secure for the rest of your life. You'll have what most people can only dream of, even if they work their whole lives. At first, Ryan still seemed a little guilty, but as he continued, his tone gradually turned condescending, like he was doing me a favor. I was just a girl from an ordinary family, completely unworthy of someone like Ryan Carter. Back then, I was hopelessly in love, never considering anything else. I never asked for anything from him. Even after we got married, I worked hard to support myself, never once touching the money he provided for my living expenses. I naively believed that by maintaining financial independence, I could preserve the purity of my love for him. But I had never once stopped to think about how Ryan truly saw me. Looking back now, it was only natural that he felt superior because Ryan Carter had never respected me. To him, I was merely a convenient distraction in his moments of loneliness. Well, then, thank you, Mr. Carter, for letting someone as ordinary as me rise to wealth overnight, I said with a smile. Having lived a second life, my words carried no sarcasm, just genuine sincerity. The experience of going through Carter Enterprises' bankruptcy, of suffering alongside Ryan through those bitter days, had made me realize just how crucial money was. Only when a love-struck fool finally wakes up does she truly become clear-headed. The past had faded like smoke in the wind. Money in hand was the only thing that truly mattered. A man might betray you, but money never would. Ryan Carter was the first man I had ever loved. Back in high school, when he saved me from being bullied by upperclassmen, he seemed like a god descending from the heavens. I fell for him completely and utterly. Even though his heart belonged to another woman, the one he saw as his first love, I still loved him in silence. Then, when his first love left him and went abroad, he was heartbroken. Out of spite, he married me. I didn't mind. I happily agreed to marry him. I thought that even if Ryan didn't love me, as long as I gave him my sincere devotion, one day he would be moved. For more than 8 years, over 3,000 days and nights, I cared for him, supported him, and stayed by his side. Even when he fell into despair after the bankruptcy and ruined his kidneys from drinking, I didn't hesitate to give him one of mine. Even a stone should have warmed up by now. But the moment his first love returned, freshly divorced and crying, in front of him, playing the victim, he immediately forgave her without hesitation. He placed the divorce papers in front of me and firmly insisted on ending our marriage. In my previous life, when Ryan first handed me the divorce agreement, I was in complete disbelief. I refused to sign. Perhaps he knew I needed time to process everything, so he gave me some time. A month later, he brought up the divorce again. Maybe seeing how heartbroken I was made him feel a little guilty. This time, the terms of the divorce settlement were even more generous. Not only did he increase the amount of money he offered me by an additional $2 million, but he also gave me the villa in the mid-levels and 2 commercial properties, each over 3,000 square feet in the city's largest shopping district. But this time, I wouldn't hesitate because I finally understood. A man's love is fleeting, but wealth is forever. Back then, my entire world revolved around this man who never loved me. I didn't care about material possessions at all. I clung to the marriage and refused to divorce him no matter what. But Ryan Carter kept bringing it up again and again, his attitude becoming increasingly harsh each time, until Carter Enterprises went bankrupt. When he no longer had the qualifications or ability to take care of his beloved first love, he finally stopped mentioning divorce. He couldn't bear to see her suffer hardships. Yet, during the most difficult period of his life, when I was the only one standing by his side, supporting him through everything, helping him through his downfall, the moment things started looking up again, when he managed to rebuild his career, he immediately ran back to serve Shane Lee like a devoted servant. Even now, I don't know whether, at the moment, he learned that both my child and I had died on the operating table, he ever felt even a shred of regret. Sophia, don't say things just to be spiteful, Ryan said in a gentle voice. I truly hope you'll have a good life from now on. Look at the terms in the divorce agreement. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, just say it. I'll meet all your requests. This was the first time in all the years I had been with him that he had shown such patience, and it was just to coax me into signing the divorce papers. What a joke! How blind had I been all these years? Now, living my life over again, without the illusions I once had, I looked at Ryan Carter's still handsome face and felt nothing but disgust. Hearing his words, I picked up the divorce agreement and examined it carefully. Aside from the properties he was giving me, he had also agreed to pay me a $1 million annual allowance for the rest of my life. That lifted my mood a bit, but Carter Enterprises would be bankrupt by this time next year. A so-called installment payment was nothing more than an empty promise. If I couldn't get the money right now, even at a slight discount, the deal was worthless. Sophia, what are you thinking? Seeing how seriously I was reviewing the divorce terms, Ryan assumed I was coming up with some new scheme to stall for time. He watched me carefully and asked the question. Just as my expression darkened slightly, I ignored whatever nonsense he was imagining and pointed at a specific clause in the agreement. If we're going to get divorced, let's make it clean. No lingering TIs, no dragging things out. The yearly allowance? There's no need for that. Just pay me the full amount in one lump sum. Ryan froze. He hesitated, then muttered, You're 29 now. Even if you live to be 80, that's another 51 years. I didn't wait for him to do the math. I'll round it down for you. Just give me 50 million. Ryan's face darkened slightly. Sophia, what? I couldn't, smiling. 50 million is nothing to a man like you, is it? If you won't give it to me, then I won't sign the divorce papers. I deliberately said it this way, knowing exactly what he was thinking. He was certain I was just stalling for time. Ryan clenched his jaw, then after a long pause, he finally said, Fine. One lump sum. Sophia, if you have any other requests, just say them now. I'll grant them all. Hearing that, my heart leapt. I wanted to immediately sign the papers, transfer the assets to my name, and walk away with my fortune. But instead, I put on a conflicted expression and said softly, Ryan, I've loved you for so many years. I gave you my entire youth. I was willing to do anything for you. And now you're divorcing me for Shane Lee? Are you really going to throw away everything we've been through? Once you sign this, you better not regret it. Recently, Shane Lee had been pulling out all the stops. After getting dumped by her foreign husband and leaving the marriage with nothing, she had her eyes set on Ryan, seeing him as a golden ticket. She played the part of the helpless, fragile woman, and Ryan, completely enthralled, was more than willing to play the hero. At my words, a flicker of guilt crossed his face, but in the next moment, his resolve hardened again. Sophia, I'm sorry. I just don't have feelings for you. And Shane. She's in a very vulnerable state right now. She needs me, I scoffed inwardly. Ryan Carter, you fool. Fine, I whispered, as if utterly heartbroken. While he had his secretary revise the divorce agreement to reflect the lump sum payment, I let tears stream down my face. Then, without hesitation, I picked up the pen and swiftly signed my name. The moment I finished signing, Ryan Carter, the pathetic, self-righteous bastard, gave me a long, puzzled look. For the first time, he hesitated. A sliver of doubt flashed through his eyes. Was he second-guessing himself? Was he realizing, even if only for a second, that something about this situation wasn't right? My heart clenched in panic. With the fortune I was about to receive, my future was wide open. I could not let this idiot back out now, absolutely not. I sobbed even harder, my tears streaming down my face as I slammed the signed divorce papers onto the table in front of Ryan Carter. Sign it now, right this moment. As soon as you do, we'll go straight to the Civil Affairs office. I wiped my tears away forcefully, my voice shaking with determination. There are plenty of good men in this world. Do you really think I, Sophia Green, can't live without you? Ryan had always believed that without him, I wouldn't survive. Back in college, I had been the campus beauty, which was exactly why I was targeted by bullies. And yet, over the years, despite having countless men pursue me, I had never paid attention to any of them. My heart had always belonged to Ryan Carter, and I never spared another man a second glance. That blind devotion, that foolish infatuation, had given him complete confidence in himself. He thought I would never leave him. First, Ryan hesitated, but now, seeing my insistence, he no longer had any doubts. He thought I was merely throwing a tantrum. Seizing the opportunity before I could change my mind, he quickly signed his name on the divorce papers. He probably believed that if he hesitated even a second longer, I might cool down and refuse to go through with it. Watching this unfold, I felt an uncontrollable rush of excitement. My money was about to come through. The luxury apartment, the villa, and the commercial properties would soon be mine. But to keep my true emotions hidden, I cried even harder, rubbing my eyes until they turned red, letting my tears fall freely. I couldn't let Ryan suspect that I was actually thrilled. If he had even the slightest inkling of my happiness, he might rethink everything. Ryan Carter, you heartless bastard. I wiped my tears aggressively. Let's go, right now. Whoever hesitates is no better than a dog. I grabbed his arm, dragging him toward the door as if I were utterly devastated. In that moment, I felt like an award-winning actress. For years, I had always been gentle and patient with Ryan, rarely losing my temper. Seeing me like this now, he was probably caught off guard. Sophia, I'm sorry, Ryan said with a sigh. Nodding toward his secretary, understanding his silent command, the secretary immediately made a phone call. Moments later, he returned and bowed slightly to Ryan. Mr. Carter, the car is ready. I sat there, my face full of despair, waiting for Ryan to leave with me. Then suddenly, his phone rang. Ryan glanced at the screen before answering. Ryan, come quickly. A woman's voice, trembling with distress, came through the phone. Emmy had an allergic reaction to something and passed out. I'm all alone at the hospital with him. The voice on the other end was filled with panic, fear, and helplessness, along with an undeniable reliance on him. I didn't even need to see her face to know who it was. Shane Lee. Even in this lifetime, I would never forget that voice. That voice was the source of my past nightmares. Shane, don't panic. I'm on my way. Ryan didn't hesitate for a second. His tone was filled with urgency and concern, and he didn't even try to conceal his emotions, not even in front of me, his legally wedded wife. Sophia, something happened to Emmy. He turned to me, his voice apologetic yet resolute. Shane can't handle this on her own. I have to go. It had happened again. This exact situation had played out before, but this time, instead of feeling hurt and helpless, I was furious. We were one step away from finalizing the divorce. It was like having a perfectly roasted duck placed in front of me, only for someone to snatch it away before I could take a bite. Ryan Carter, do you even hear yourself right now? My voice was sharp with anger. Do you think we're about to go on a shopping trip or to an amusement park? We're going to finalize our divorce, and you're still running off to Shane? Sophia, stop being unreasonable, Ryan said with an exasperated sigh. Emmy is just a child. He doesn't have a father anymore. You should have some compassion. I nearly had a heart attack from sheer rage. This bastard. If we weren't still legally married and if we didn't have to go to the civil affairs office, I would have slapped him across the face twice. Ryan didn't even wait for my response. Without another word, he turned and rushed out the door with his secretary in tow. I clenched my jaw, grabbed the divorce papers from the table, stuffed them into my bag, and stormed after him. Ryan got into the car, and just as he was about to close the door, I squeezed in at the last second. Sophia, why are you following me? Ryan frowned, his expression cold and distant. I crossed my arms and smirked. I'm coming to see exactly how sick Shane's child is. If he's on his deathbed, then fine. But if this is just another one of her tricks, I'd like to see how you justify leaving me behind for this. Last lifetime, Shane had pulled the exact same stunt. She called Ryan right when I was about to give birth, crying that something urgent had happened. Her voice had been full of desperation, making it sound like a life or death situation. Ryan, without even thinking twice, had abandoned me, and because of that, my child and I never made it out of the hospital alive. The grief and hatred in my heart surged violently. Sophia, I know you hate Shane, but she and her child are innocent. They haven't done anything wrong. I told you from the beginning I don't love you. The way you're targeting a child is disgraceful. If you don't want to shut up, then get out of the car right now. Ryan Carter had never been gentle with me. His attitude had always been cold and distant. Earlier, he had only softened his tone slightly out of guilt over the divorce. But now, worried about that woman's child, he had completely lost his patience. His face was dark with anger, his hostility undisguised. The hatred in my chest burned hotter, but I suppressed it. If I pushed him too far, he might really throw me out of the car. Such a critical moment in our divorce, I couldn't let him escape. Besides, Ryan and Shane, that pair of scumbags, would eventually get what they deserved. That didn't stop me from collecting some interest in advance. The rest of the drive was silent. When we arrived at the hospital, Ryan jumped out of the car and ran straight to the nurse's station, urgently asking for Shane and her son's whereabouts. Then, without hesitation, he sprinted down the hall as if a second's delay would be catastrophic. I followed behind him at a more measured pace. The moment I turned the corner and saw Shane and her son sitting perfectly fine in the waiting area, my lips curled into a sneer. The boy, Emmy, who had supposedly passed out, was sitting on a chair, sniffling, his eyes wet with unshed tears. His skin had a few faint red spots, likely from a mild allergic reaction. Beside him, Shane had the same delicate, pitiful expression, her eyes glistening as she reached out to Ryan the second he appeared. Ryan, she whimpered as she threw herself into his arms. You scared me to death. I was so afraid. Emmy is my everything. I was terrified something would happen to him. Thank God the doctor saved him. Standing nearby, I scoffed coldly. Anaphylactic shock? Hardly. With only a few faint rashes, this didn't even qualify as a mild reaction. There was no way he had passed out, but Ryan, that blind, brainless idiot, believed everything Shane said. Memories of my past life hit me like a storm. My child, my innocent baby, had actually been in danger. He could have been saved, but because of this vile woman, Ryan had abandoned me when I needed him most. A cold, fiery rage consumed me. My vision turned red. Without thinking, I lunged forward and slapped Shane across the face. The sharp crack of my palm against her cheek echoed through the waiting room. Shane barely had time to react before I slapped her again, then again, my hand flying with years of pent-up hatred. Her stunned expression was almost laughable. I still wasn't satisfied. Grabbing a handful of her hair, I yanked her forward and gave her another hard slap, making sure her delicate, pitiful image was completely ruined. In that moment, I was no longer playing nice. Ryan was frozen in shock, too stunned to stop me. At first, when he finally snapped out of it, his face twisted in rage. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing? Are you insane? How dare you lay a hand on Shane?" His eyes burned with fury, as if he was ready to tear me apart. He yanked me away from Shane and even raised his hand, about to strike me. I welcomed it. "Ladies and gentlemen, take a good look. These two scumbags are a perfect match for each other," I shouted, my voice echoing through the hospital hall. "Ryan Carter, you would actually hit your wife, your legal wife, for the woman who abandoned you years ago. Do you have no shame?" A crowd had already gathered around us, murmuring in hushed voices. I had planned ahead. While sitting in the car earlier, I wasn't just staying silent. I had reached out to multiple media outlets. Ryan Carter was Carter Enterprises' heir, a scandal like this? No way the reporters would miss it. Before we even arrived at the hospital, journalists had already been stationed around the area, waiting to capture every single second of this mess. Now, camera flashes erupted like fireworks. Ryan's hand froze in mid-air. He wasn't an idiot. He knew what this looked like. If he actually hit me, the headlines tomorrow would be brutal. I could already picture them. Carter Enterprises heir Ryan Carter caught cheating. Wife confronts mistress in public scandal. Legal wife slaps mistress while husband protects his lover. Disgraceful scene unfolds in hospital. Ryan clenched his jaw and lowered his hand. His expression shifted instantly. "Sophia, this is all a misunderstanding. Stop making a scene. Let's go somewhere private to talk." His secretary rushed over, attempting to do damage control, but I wasn't about to let them sweep this under the rug so easily. "Go inside?" "Why would I do that?" I snapped, my voice dripping with venom. "I refuse to be in the same room as that shameless home wrecker. Just breathing the same air as her is disgusting. And that little brat of hers, he's already learned how to act just like his mother. Who knows whose husband he'll seduce in the future? Sophia, Emmy is just a child," Ryan barked, his face turning pale. I felt a surge of anger and resentment rising inside me. "Sophia, how can you say that about her?" Shane clung to Ryan's arm, her voice trembling with grievance. "I know you've misunderstood my relationship with Ryan, but we've always been innocent. He's only here because he cares about Emmy. She's just a child without a father, and Ryan couldn't bear to leave her without help." Shane, as always, played the victim to perfection. She looked at me with those pitiful, teary eyes, as if I were some villain tormenting an innocent mother and child. A few people in the crowd even showed signs of sympathy toward her. I sneered. "Spare me that act, Shane. If you're so innocent, why were you crying in my husband's arms? Ever heard of boundaries? Or do you just not believe in them?" I stepped forward, my eyes sharp and filled with mockery. "And why exactly does your daughter not have a father?" "That's not my fault. That's because you were out messing around while married. Your ex-husband did a paternity test and found out the child wasn't his. She's a bastard. That's why he threw you out along with your kid. If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to show my face in public. But instead of hiding in shame, you latched onto another man, the man I married, just because you had no money left. And now you expect me to be polite to you? I didn't give Shane a chance to respond. I exposed her right there in front of everyone, dragging her fake dignity through the mud. She wanted to maintain the image of a pure, helpless woman while clinging to another person's husband. What a joke! I was going to rip that mask off and make sure she lived under the scorn of the public, hiding like the pathetic rat she was. Shane's face paled with panic. She clearly hadn't expected me to know the truth. The reporters around us instantly perked up, their pens moving rapidly as they noted down everything. I felt a sense of satisfaction swelling inside me. Ryan, however, looked absolutely furious. His face was so dark it was almost terrifying. He didn't believe a single word I said. In his eyes, Shane was a perfect, pure, untouchable goddess who deserved the best life had to offer. Even when she abandoned him years ago, he convinced himself it was out of desperation, and now, seeing her so pitiful and wronged, he was probably aching for her even more. Sophia, shut your mouth. Ryan snapped, his voice laced with warning. If you dare slander Shane again, don't blame me for not being polite. His gaze was sharp, full of barely contained rage. For a moment, the crowd held its breath, waiting for me to retaliate. But I didn't. I knew exactly where Ryan's limits were. If I pushed him too far, it wouldn't end well. After all, I hadn't officially gotten my divorce papers yet, and Carter Enterprises hadn't collapsed yet. I couldn't afford to ruin my plans. It was enough to humiliate him and make his life miserable. I wouldn't let my own emotions get in the way of my end goal. Just then, security guards arrived, quickly dispersing the onlookers and restoring order to the hospital. Shane lowered her head, her delicate sobs breaking the silence. Sophia, you've misunderstood me too deeply, she whispered, then turned to Ryan with teary eyes. Ryan, you believe me, don't you? I didn't do any of those things. I would never. Shane, you don't need to explain yourself to her. Ryan's voice was soft, soothing, completely opposite to how he spoke to me. He reached out and gently patted her back. Then his expression turned ice cold again as he looked at me. Sophia, do you really think throwing a tantrum will stop me from divorcing you? If anything, you're just making me hate you more. And there it was, my cue to act again. I lowered my head, my voice trembling with hesitation. Ryan, I don't know what came over me. I didn't mean what I said earlier. It was just, when I thought about leaving the hospital and going straight to the civil affairs office to finalize the divorce, I deliberately mentioned the divorce. The sooner it was locked in, the better, and as expected, Shane took the bait immediately. She eagerly turned to Ryan, her voice full of urgency. Ryan, don't waste any more time. Just get it over with, she urged. Emmy and I will be waiting for you. Ryan, seeing Shane so concerned, instantly hardened his resolve. He nodded firmly. Don't worry, Shane. I'll handle everything. Since Emmy is fine, I'll take care of this first, then come back to you. Shane's eyes glistened with satisfaction. Okay, Ryan, we'll be waiting. Ryan turned to me. Let's go, Sophia. His voice was firm, unwavering. Nothing will change the fact that we're getting divorced. If you have any sense, don't try to pull any more stunts. Otherwise, everything I promised you will be off the table. I clenched my fists tightly, pretending to tremble. That was the only threat that actually mattered. But on the surface, I smiled faintly, calm, composed, unbothered. You know me, Ryan, I whispered. I never make bad deals. I never wanted anything from you. Money was just an external possession. All I ever wanted was to be with you. Ryan Carter dragged me into the car, afraid that I would change my mind and run away before finalizing the divorce. To ensure I wouldn't escape, he even had bodyguards stationed around us. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. How pathetic. 30 minutes later, we arrived at the civil affairs office. The staff member processing our case looked at us with mild hesitation. Are you both absolutely sure about this? Have you reached an agreement on the division of assets? We've reached an agreement, Ryan responded without a moment's hesitation, and we've already signed the agreement. Only then did he realize that in his rush to leave the hospital, he hadn't brought the divorce papers. He turned to his secretary. "Go back and get them," I heard him, and calmly took the documents out of my bag. "No need. I brought them with me." Ryan gave me a sharp look, his brows furrowing with suspicion. When it didn't involve Shane, he actually had a decent level of intelligence, and right now, he found it hard to believe that I was so eager to get divorced, more eager than him even. Impossible, he was convinced I was using some kind of reverse psychology. There was no way he was going to let me manipulate him into reconsidering. I watched him hesitate, and a cold smile curled on my lips. "What's the matter? Having second thoughts? Did you realize I'm actually better than your precious Shane, and now you can't bear to let me go?" Ryan's face twisted with irritation. If there was one thing he couldn't stand, it was the idea that he cared about me. No matter how conflicted he might have felt, his pride wouldn't allow it. Without another word, he grabbed the pen and signed the divorce papers with forceful determination. The moment the official stamped the documents and handed me the divorce certificate, I let out a long breath of relief. My body felt lighter, as if I had been freed from an invisible chain. But I didn't allow myself to get carried away, not yet. The assets listed in the agreement still needed to be transferred to my name. Until that was finalized, I couldn't afford to celebrate. If Ryan wanted to make things difficult for me, I wouldn't stand a chance against him. For a brief moment, I had worried he would go back on his word and retract his promises. The stunt I pulled at the hospital had been a risky move. "Sophia, we're divorced now," Ryan said coldly. "I hope you won't bother me again. Take the assets I gave you and live your life quietly." I didn't argue. I simply nodded and walked away without looking back. Just as I was leaving, I overheard Ryan instructing his subordinates, "Make sure today's incident at the hospital doesn't make it into the news." I sat in the car, a smirk playing at my lips. I had no intention of stopping him. Let him think he had cleaned up the mess. The evidence was still there. Anytime I wanted it, I could make sure the truth resurfaced. Shane's reputation would be ruined at the perfect moment, not now. That would be too easy. I would wait. I would wait until Ryan and Shane were married, until he had given everything to her, tied himself to her completely. Then I'd deliver my wedding gift, a scandal so explosive it would destroy him. But for now, I had more pressing matters to handle. The transfer of assets needed to happen immediately. The very next morning, I called Ryan's secretary. Unlike Ryan, his secretary actually had a brain. He had seen how I had treated Ryan all these years and surprisingly held some sympathy for me. Because of that, he didn't give me a hard time. In fact, he handled the transfer of assets swiftly and efficiently. Within hours, all the properties and commercial spaces were officially in my name. As for the financial settlement, Ryan wired the entire amount in one go. $40 million in compensation, $50 million in installments, a total of $90 million. When I saw the final balance in my bank account, I nearly laughed out loud. Finally know that I had the money, I moved on to my next step, investing. 3 days later, I poured $50 million into a single stock. In my past life, I had once read about a stock market miracle, a casual investor who had turned a small investment into 20 times its value in just 2 months. I had looked up the details back then purely out of curiosity. Who would have thought I'd get the chance to use that knowledge? This was my golden opportunity. The market could crash, fortunes could be lost, but I knew exactly which stock would skyrocket. And thanks to Ryan, I had the capital to invest. So, I took the risk. For the next 2 months, I lived and breathed the stock market. Nothing else mattered. I didn't care about Ryan. I didn't care about Shane. I focused entirely on my investment, and when the time came, I cashed out. My bank account balance, $1 billion. I leaned back in my chair, finally able to breathe freely. I could spend the rest of my life doing absolutely nothing and still live like royalty. It wasn't until 2 months later that I saw Ryan and Shane's name's back in the headlines. Front page news. Shane had finally married him. Without me standing in her way, she had successfully latched onto her prize. She was now the glorious wife of Ryan Carter, a member of high society, and just as I finished reading that news, my phone rang. Ryan's mother. I smirked as I answered the call. How unexpected. Ryan's mother had never liked me. She was the one who had raised Ryan to be the arrogant, self-important man he was today, high and mighty, looking down on everyone. During my years as Ryan's wife, she had treated me with nothing but condescension and hostility. She had never once acknowledged me as her equal. So why was she calling me now? Out of curiosity, I agreed to meet her. The location was a high-end cafe. When I arrived, she was already seated, dressed elegantly as ever, the picture of wealth and refinement. The moment she saw me walk in wearing a simple tracksuit, her expression subtly shifted. Disdain, disgust, disappointment. She scoffed, "No wonder Ryan wanted to divorce you. Look at yourself, you have no class at all." In the past, every time my former mother-in-law looked down on me, her disdain had stung. It had made me feel inferior, humiliated, and deeply hurt. But now, hearing those same words, knowing what she would soon be facing, all I felt was satisfaction. Karma was finally doing its job. "So, is this why you called me here?" I asked, arching a brow. Ryan's mother, Mrs. Zhao, finally got to the point. "As much as I dislike you, it's pathetic that you spent all those years by Ryan's side and still couldn't hold on to him. You actually let a shameless woman like Shane steal him away." She had never liked me as a daughter-in-law, but at least I had been a proper one in her eyes. Shane, a divorced woman with a child, was a gold digger, clearly after Ryan's wealth. But what angered her most was that Shane had managed to drive a wedge between her and Ryan that she absolutely could not tolerate. That was why she had called me here. She wanted me to fight Shane. "Sophia," she said, her voice softening slightly, "you were always the better match for Ryan. Come back to him. I'll support you. I'll be on your side." I nearly burst out laughing. So this was her plan, to use me as a weapon against Shane. I leaned back lazily and smirked. "Mrs. Zhao, you're mistaken. The problem wasn't that I couldn't keep Ryan. It was that I was blind enough to want him in the first place." My tone turned mocking. "A cheating man and his mistress, they deserve each other. And you? You always thought I wasn't cunning enough to be a good daughter-in-law. Well, now you have Shane, who's exactly the kind of scheming woman you deserve. A conniving daughter-in-law for a demanding mother-in-law. What a perfect match." For years I had endured this woman's condescension. I had swallowed my grievances, never talking back. She was used to having power over me, to me being the obedient, submissive daughter-in-law. She never expected me to say something like this. Her face turned red with rage, her hand clutching her chest. I gave her a sweet smile. "Mrs. Zhao, since we were once family, let me leave you with a little parting gift. I think you'll enjoy it." With that, I placed a USB drive on the table. "Sophia Green, don't think you can just walk away after taking my son's money." She spat, her voice shaking with fury. "You're just a second-hand woman now. Do you really think you'll find someone better than Ryan? You'll regret this." I didn't argue. Time would prove everything. I stood up, leaving the USB drive behind. Whatever storm it caused for Ryan and Shane, I couldn't care less. Just to be thorough, I sent a second copy of the USB drive to the media. Even though the Carter family was on the verge of bankruptcy, Shane still had a few months left to enjoy her so-called luxurious life, but I wasn't going to let her. Not even for a second. I hope this human tune rewrite works for you. Let me know if you'd like any further adjustments or if you have more script you'd like me to look at. The USB contained every dirty little secret Shane had. The night after I sent it, I booked the first flight out of S-City. I had more than enough money now. The world was mine to explore. For the next few months, I traveled freely, staying far away from the Carter family's impending downfall. But I still kept an eye on the news. Sure enough, Ryan and Shane were a mess. Entertainment tabloids splashed their scandals across the front pages. Ryan and Shane getting into a heated fight during a high society event, with rumors of an impending divorce. The headlines hinted at infidelity, money issues, and family feuds. Meanwhile, Ryan's mother openly complained to the press about how disappointed she was in Shane, how she regretted letting Ryan marry her. It was all falling apart. I returned to a city right before the Carter family's bankruptcy, stepping off the private jet in stilettos. I was greeted by a line of handsome, 6-foot-tall men carrying my bags, offering me water, feeding me fruit. Money was truly a wonderful thing. With enough of it, I could have any kind of man I wanted. Gentle, attentive, eager to please. "You've really fallen this low, Sophia?" A familiar voice rang out behind me. I turned, mildly surprised. Ryan Carter. I hadn't expected to run into him here of all places. He looked exhausted. His once pristine appearance was gone. His face was haggard, his eyes sunken. He looked like he had aged years since I had last seen him. His voice was filled with pain. "You really can't live without me, huh? Is that why you're doing this to yourself?" Before I could even process the absurdity of his words, the handsome man beside me reached out and gently patted my back. "Did that scare you?" he murmured, his voice soothing. "Whoever just yelled so rudely must have no manners at all." Ryan's expression darkened instantly. Seeing me pampered like this by another man was clearly driving him insane. Before I could react, Ryan lunged forward and punched the man beside me. The man stumbled back slightly but quickly regained his composure. He wasn't as patient as I was. Without hesitation, he punched Ryan right back. Ryan staggered, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He glared at me, his eyes burning with hatred. I met Ryan Carter's gaze with an amused smirk. "Ryan, what's with that look?" I taunted. "Do I look like someone who can't survive without you? Let me tell you something. Leaving a scumbag like you was the best decision of my life." I finally realized how wonderful and fulfilling life can be. With the money you so generously gave me, I've traveled the world, indulged in luxury, and enjoyed the company of lovely, handsome men. Now I finally understand what true happiness feels like. Ryan's expression darkened instantly, his lips curled into a cold, menacing sneer. "Good, very good, Sophia," he said, his voice laced with venom. "Since I could give you this life, I can also take it all away. You will regret everything." He shot me one last icy glance before turning to leave. There was something different about him now, an edge of cruelty, a ruthlessness that hadn't been there before. He wasn't the same man who used to look at me with detached indifference. This version of Ryan was dangerous, but I only scoffed. He didn't scare me in the slightest. Ryan Carter was nothing more than a paper tiger, intimidating on the surface, but utterly powerless underneath. Soon, he would fall from his pedestal and be dragged through the mud, and compared to someone else, Ryan's presence wasn't even a blip on my radar. At the thought of that man, a chill ran down my spine. I could still remember his voice, low, dangerous, and possessive, as he whispered in my ear, "If you ever try to run from me, I'll break your legs and keep you locked by my side forever." Thankfully, he never found out who I really was. The world was vast. There was no way he could track me down. With that thought, I gathered my composure, stepped out of the airport, and was immediately greeted by a line of luxury cars waiting at the entrance. The moment I slid into the back seat, a pair of strong arms wrapped around me from behind. "Sophia," a familiar voice purred, "have you had your fun yet?" His tone was gentle, indulgent, but laced with danger. "You promised to marry me, remember? There's no backing out now." My entire body went stiff. That voice, the voice I had prayed I would never hear again. Quinn Shaw, a powerful force in America, a man with influence that even I couldn't begin to comprehend, and the very man I had accidentally provoked during my time overseas. It all started one drunken night at a bar. I had been tipsy, feeling bold, and spotted an absurdly attractive male model who went by the nickname Beast. On impulse, I took him home. I had no idea who I was messing with. Quinn wasn't just some pretty plaything. He was lethal. By the time I realized the danger I was in, it was too late. I tried to escape. I ran. After all, I had finally broken free from one disastrous marriage. I wasn't about to fall into another trap. I thought I had gotten away. Clearly, I was wrong. Quinn had been waiting, and the moment I returned to my home country, he caught me. I forced out a nervous laugh, trying to play it off. Quinn, come on, that was just a drunk mistake. I didn't mean any of it. Besides, I'm a divorced woman now. Sure, I'm a little good-looking, but I have no substance. I'm just an ordinary woman. You should let me go, he chuckled softly, the sound sending chills down my spine. Are you saying you want to break our agreement? His grip on my waist tightened ever so slightly. My instincts screamed at me. I had seen what he was capable of. Forcing a smile, I shook my head rapidly. No, of course not. I just need more time. Quinn smiled, a smile that was far too dangerous to be reassuring. You're such a smart girl, he murmured. You know how to make the right choices. I was doomed. 3 years later, in the heart of the city, a grand wedding took place. It was the event of the century. By then, the Carter family had already collapsed into ruin, and Shane, the moment Carter Enterprises went bankrupt, she divorced Ryan immediately, trying to flee with what little money was left. But Ryan caught her just in time, sold her off to an old, ugly man in a remote village. Ryan himself, utterly broken, on the verge of starvation, he passed out from hunger, and in his dreams, memories of another life flooded back. When he awoke, disoriented, his gaze fell upon a massive screen broadcasting a woman's radiant smile, my smile. Tears of regret streamed down his face. But before he could do anything, police officers approached. Mr. Carter, one of them announced. You are under investigation for human trafficking. Please come with us.